Welcome, welcome, welcome. New Africa August 2020. Welcome everyone. We're on our 27th day of New Africa August. And today we have a wonderful and illustrious group of individuals that are joining us to have a conversation about global governance and the role of the African Diasporan youth. A panel on global governance and what our African Diasporan youth should be doing to participate in building society. Today, we have a moderator, Mr. Stanley Straughter. Mr. Stanley Straughter is a specialist in international business development. With nearly 40 years of experience in international development, he has lived and worked over several countries in the continents of Africa, Central Asia, the Caribbean, Latin America, and Russia. As a financial specialist, Mr. Straughter has provided services to foreign governments and governance and transparency, worked with finance ministers and provided advice and counsel to governments on trade policy, foreign direct investment, and economic growth and cooperative economic development. He has done some great work. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He does a great work in connecting communities and people all the way across the country that have been affected by the African diaspora. So I'm going to turn over our conversation today to Brother Stanley Straughter, the Honorable Brother Stanley Straughter, and enjoy.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me to be here. It's a very great honor for me to have an opportunity to speak to you and also to have such esteemed friends and colleagues, but more important that they're specialists in their own area and experts in the areas of diplomacy and work around the world. The notion of this concept of the global African diaspora and Black youth and how we're preparing for it came out of a discussion that Mr. Rashid Knox and I were having in reference to the future. You know, I have a distinct advantage over all of y'all being close to 80 years old. So no matter what you do today, I can guarantee you there will be a future. The future will either be in your favor or it will not be in your favor. And if you prepare for the future, you will be ahead of the game. And so for myself and all these diplomats on, the question is, what role will we play as Black people in the world of tomorrow? If you listen to the population experts or demographers, they will tell you that in the United States alone, by 2045, Black and brown and Asian people would be the majority population in the United States of America. You've already seen the population on the continent of Africa, 1.3 billion people and growing. Within the next 10 years, I think Nigeria will be the fourth largest country by population in the world. So we're not playing games here. We can think we're playing, but everybody just knows how serious we are. And that's why we have, and these are my words, this seemingly upsurge in global white supremacy to keep us in our place, whether it's in Philadelphia or on the continent of Africa in the form of colonialism, or even in Europe, where you see people of color being oppressed and indiscriminately being brutalized. So for me, I think we at a very historic time. First and foremost, I think we are honored to have these seasoned diplomats here with us. And more importantly, their experience will help guide us in the future, just as the great Marcus Garvey tried to guide our history and many others in the future. So I wanted to stop there and introduce my guests who are here now, and then ask them to speak, and then we can go to the open conversation. Okay, so let me name all the guests, and then we'll come back to them to speak. So I first have the Honorable Christopher Chaplin. Chris is a finance expert in his own right. He is also a leader in the Caribbean community here in the Greater Philadelphia area, and he's the Honorary Consul for Jamaica in the Greater Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania. So thank you, Chris, for coming. Next to him is our dear friend and brother, the Honorable His Excellency, Ambassador Denis Antoine. Denis has served at the United Nations on behalf of his country, Grenada. He has also served China and for his country, and has also served as the Grenadian ambassador to the United States. In addition to being an esteemed scholar and academic, he is also a publisher, and this is right up his alley. He's published several books on youth and leadership. And I'm going to let him tell you a little more about that when we get to him. My next colleague, Ambassador Guy Djoken, he is here with us. I want to thank you for joining us. Guy, an ambassador in his own right, first and foremost, is a diplomat. He is with the United Nations clubs and organizations. He's the head of that global organization. I've had the honor and distinction of being associated with that organization myself. That organization is not singularly in the United States, has clubs and partnerships around the world. He, in his own right, is again a world traveler, diplomat, scholar, and he is also a writer. He recently has produced a book in this question of youth. So it's on the agenda, and I want to thank you both for being here. We're gonna
my pleasure.
We're going to we still have coming with us the Honorable Council Lady Jannie Blackwell, who was a former council person for over 25 years for the 3rd Councilmatic District of the City of Philadelphia. She is now the chairperson of the Mayor's Commission on African, Caribbean, and Immigrant Affairs, and she is also the first vice chair of the Philadelphia Democratic Party, and she's working with us in some other issues around electoral politics and leadership. So I want to thank her. And then we have the Honorable Ugochukwu, who is formerly, I should say, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Newark, New Jersey. He is currently the president of the African Diasporan for Good Governance, Inc. in the United States here. It is a national organization in 37 states across the country, and we're working on, it's a bipartisan organization working on registration, education, and election, getting people of African descent to work together so that we can achieve the high heights that we imagine that we can achieve through this political organization and work. So that's our guest for today. And let me thank all of you again and go to our esteemed leader, Mr. Christopher Chaplin. Can we start off with you first and have you talk briefly about what it is you do, your career, and the work that you have been doing as the Honorary Consul, and how you actually prepared yourself for this. And so let me thank you again for being here and congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I thought I might allow Ambassador Antoine to go first. Is that okay? Oh, all right, he's pointing to me. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's what you have when you have wisdom. You know, I'm learning wisdom from him. No, thank you, Stan. As you know, my background is banking, and I've been a banker for more years than I care to admit. And I thought I'd just briefly, speak about the Jamaican government's involvement in getting the diaspora youth involved, if that's okay, and I'll be brief. A few years ago, our government recognized that we needed to sort of strengthen our relationship with the diaspora. And so we formulated a global Jamaica Diaspora Council, which had a global reach. Our thinking was representative not only from the normal centers of the US, UK, Canada, but also from the Middle East, Africa, Asia, South America, the Caribbean, because we recognize good ideas don't just come from the normal colonial places. The ideas may come from anywhere. And so we formulated this council that constitutes 28 people. But of those 28 people, 14 are elected. And of those 14, 7 are youth. And by youth, you might just qualify, Stan, but it's 18 to 35.
Good to know.
And it's very important that we, and so these members form the Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council. And the council started in January of this year, so it's relatively new, but I can definitely report that we have had some great success. As you know, because of COVID, our airports were closed. And so we had a number of Jamaican workers, hotel workers, farm workers who were stranded in the United States. We also had a number of students who were stranded in the United States. Colleges were starting to kick them out. And so the Youth Council, the Diaspora Council, along with the embassies and the consulates and several non-government organizations within the United States came together to support them. We raised money. We were able to provide food. I think, Stan, you are aware of in Philadelphia, the churches and other organizations, we coordinated to supply food and supplies to these stranded Jamaicans. For the students, again, with the council, Dr. Karen Dunkley and our Consul General in New York and our ambassador in Washington, we were able to provide cash cards to a lot of students that kept them, kept them out of any trouble and kept them going for several months. So, the first test of this council was passed with flying colors. And the reason I bring this up is that what I have found, and I love working with our students here, is that they have the passion and the energy to make a difference when, folks like you and me, we may be starting to slow down. Ambassador Denis Antoine never slows down, but, some of us are starting to slow down, and they have the passion and the energy. What is sometimes missing is sort of the governance and the organization. And so this council was our answer to that. And so far, so good. As I said, for us, the way forward is to strengthen this council, get it more involved in development, in business ownership. And we think a number of the members of these councils and their supporters and their advisors have shown the signs that we'll continue to support them. So I thought I'd leave with the person I consider the first, well, he is the first, but I consider him the real national hero of Jamaica. And that's the Right Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And he said this: "I trust that you will so live today as to realize that you're masters of your own destiny, masters of your own fate. If there's anything you want in this world, it is for you to strike out with confidence and faith in self and reach for it." So I'll leave it with those words. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it very much. We're going to come back. I have a bunch of questions that raised for you, and we're going to try to get to everybody's first and then come back with questions and answers, open it up. I see we have a chat board going on right now anyway. So thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate that. I also appreciate what you're doing with our young people out there, and especially at these various difficult times with the pandemic and people needing food. I have never seen so much in my life the people that need food and people who ordinarily you wouldn't believe were in need of anything. It's just a tragic tragedy of our time. So thank you for what you and the Caribbean community do here. Thank you very much. Next, I want to introduce to you again a great friend, Ambassador Guy Djoken. Guy is, I call him Guy, but let me call him Ambassador. I want to respect his title because those are earned credentials. Nobody gave it to him. He had to earn them. And so his diplomatic standing at the United Nations and specifically, and of course in general within our community, I just need you to explain what the UN clubs are, because that's what got me interested in what you were doing and made me say, hey, I got to support this. This young man is out there. He has to do it. And also the issues related to peace that you've been working on around the world. We have our young people to understand that we are the determinants of what the future is going to be. And I appreciate you because the work that you're doing in the United Nations around the world is simple that every time we see a world authority, there's a white guy. So I feel comfortable when I see Chris and Ambassador Antoine and you at the table with these white people talking about what's happening in the world. You know what I mean? Not just the Black world, in the world. So I want to congratulate you for your leadership, your expertise, your scholarship, but also to close out with a little bit about your book and how you've come to see the role of the youth in our community. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stan. The Honorable Stan. So definitely, one of the things I'm so proud of is that God has put amazing people in my path. Mm-hmm. We talk about Ambassador Antoine, who, beside all the other titles we mentioned, he was also the ambassador of his country to AOS. That's the Organization of the American State. not only Vice President of the United Nations General Assembly. Very few people in the world will amount to that level, and that is someone very simple, very humble, very accessible, and as you know, is our mutual friend. And you are very lucky to be on the stage with him and Chris. And Chris, I'm so happy we are meeting here. But I want to tell you about, I think about 3 years ago, I was invited by the National Commission for UNESCO of Jamaica to train the Federation of UNESCO Club. You have a dynamic president over there of Club UNESCO over there, a young lady that, and they have some clubs, and I've done some work with them. And I think they may also provide a venue for us to do more. So again, my name is Djoken, and I was born in Cameroon. You know, we are now Americans, but we are from the motherland. You know, I'm from the motherland, and that's, you know, that's something that I wake up every day remembering, because we know all the people left behind. And when you talk about Marcus Garvey, and I think one of the problems with our youth is that these heroes that actually led the way, you know, either to have the independence in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Africa, you know, our young people don't know a lot about them, okay? And that is something that I think we need to fix. So I'm the president of the U.S. Federation of UNESCO Clubs, Centers, and Association, and this is a worldwide movement that started in 1947, just after the Second World War. After the two bombs that were, you know, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that were sent to Japan. Japan was not a member of the United Nations, it wasn't a member of UNESCO, and then they created something called UNESCO, you know, that was mandated to bring peace around the world through education, science, culture, and communication. A young man in Japan heard about this new idea called UNESCO, and then he was listening to it. He said, wow, this is such, you know, he realized he said it was too important to leave in the hands of the government, okay? Because, you know, we were thinking that government was the solution. No, government is not a solution, okay? It is the people, it's the social, the activists that we need to, like Margaret Garvey, all these great people we are thinking about, they were not part of the government, but yet they were able to leave a message that we turn out. So the first club was founded in Japan, you know, and then again to use the ideals of this diplomat, you know, to be the foot soldiers of this movement called UNESCO. And then later on, the leadership of UNESCO realized this was a movement that could be used as a foot soldiers of this organization that was mandated to use education, science, culture, and communication to bring the world together. Okay, so you have a very dynamic club in Jamaica, and I'm looking forward for the condition to be right to travel so that I can come meet with you face to face. We could have some meetings, and because I once realized that Jamaica was actually a very central place to have some of the events that I've been working. I will tell you in a minute about, because that's some of the things that Honorable Stan liked to talk about. So about 2004, we came up with the idea of simulating the United General Assembly, okay? We wanted young people to learn about how decisions are made around the world, you know, at the highest level. So we have students from around the world, they come here for 2 weeks. And what they do is then during that time, you know, one John will be the ambassador of Kenya, the ambassador of Japan, the ambassador of Jamaica, and they come together and they make decisions. Some will be doing like the Security Council, and they actually use the actual rule of the Security Council to make their decision. That for us is the way they learn by doing. That's leadership. And like I said, we have many Jamaican students participating in that event. It's one of the things that I'm the proudest of. Last in July, this very July, actually because of the corona, we end up having it virtually. Guess what? It was also a blessing in disguise, because we end up reaching out the highest number of participants. Almost 500 young people from 60 different countries participated. And you can see even our brother and friend and diplomat, Ambassador Antoine, was one of the keynote speaker at the closing ceremony, okay? Was able to tell the student, you know, to guide them. So these are some of the tools that are in place. So the UNESCO Club movement right now is one within the United Nations. As you know, the United Nations is a member state organization. Jamaica is a member. Unfortunately, the US right now is not a member, but I hope after November we'll be able to go back to the UN, to UNESCO. So all these countries are members, but there's a civil society component under the World Federation of UNESCO Clubs and Centers, and that's where we operate. As you know, as a diplomat, you may not agree with certain things that I sent to you, but you have no choice. But the civil society in a different position, right? So that's allow us to move around. Like right now, I will tell you something very strange that happened to the last summer program. One of the best students of the summer program that we held in July was a student from Iran representing the United States. He ended up having the best prize. Imagine that in the world that we are living in. So I'm just using an example to show you the kind of magic we are doing using the tools that we are having. So I'm here to say that there's another element that I wanted to bring to the table. Ambassador Antoine knows this very well. In 2015, the international community came up with this, the decade for people of African descent, right? I know Ambassador Honorary Stanley is working on that, but I'm actually, as we speak right now, I'm putting a committee in place so that we have a major event in the United States next year under the umbrella of the Decade for People of African Descent. The mandate will be simple. One of the major components will be youth empowerment. Okay, but the most, what I would like to, my dream is that as the decade ends in 2024, we have a roadmap to make sure that the message of Marcus Garvey, all other leaders, Edmond Césaire, and all these things, we learn from what has happened. We know Haiti was the first independent country, is suffering. Why? Because, you know, they had to be an example so that no follows that. We know all the what France did, right? To make sure that, you know, Haiti will never evolve and become an independent country. So we can learn about all these things. There's you, me, and many other people that are ready so that we can come together and chart a new path. The NAACP, which is one of the greatest organizations in the United States, was founded in 1909. I was president of the for 11 years. So, and what I think I learned, the first meeting, they couldn't even meet in the United States because as Black, they were Black in the group, they had to go to Niagara Falls, the Niagara movement. But yet, they are credited as some of the success of making this country what it is, to the progress that's made. Those are something that I've learned. And I know that we're working through our young people and getting them to see how this change has happened, then we'll be in a better position come 2024 on the eve of the end of the decade of people descent to have a roadmap to make sure that things like the Obama story is not a unique story in the next century. So I'm going to stop here. Hopefully we're going to have a Q&A, and I'm turning back over to our brother, advisor, Stanley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I appreciate that, and congratulations to you again. I think we understand how you have to have some futuristic thinking to put these things in place and to shape institutions.
Yeah, man.
Especially institutions like the United Nations, the World Bank, and that's what we want to have our people, have our young people think about. Yeah. Do they want to work at the UN? We know that the system will change at some point, but will we be at the table to help make those decisions, or will we be on the menu being gobbled up like things have happened in the past? So how do we prepare our youth for it? And your experience and Christopher's experience will help us move in that direction. Now, let me say the giant among us here is on his way up. I know we got some other people, but let me just tell you about His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Denis Antoine. First of all, I'm happy to say that we have been friends, and that didn't come easy because he was always at the top of the list. Wherever I went, he was at the top, whether it's at University of District of Columbia, he was the dean there. Then when we traveled, I thought I was doing something. I became a Yoruba chief. His Imperial Majesty, the Union of Ife, made me a chief. And 10, I thought I was doing something. I said, Dennis, come on, go with me, man. I went with him. They said, hey, Dennis, how you doing? I was supposed to be the star, you know? We took a whole delegation, and His Imperial Majesty recognized him. But his scholarship, of course, his demeanor, like you said, Ambassador, he's, you know, very low-key kind of guy, but he is dynamic in his work, his tenacity, and more important, the way he works both for his country and for people of African descent around the world. His tenure, of course, as Grenadian ambassador to the United States, his tenure as Grenadian ambassador to United Nations. And I need to say that he was president, served the president of the UN Security Council during his tenure there. And then his head of state saw the vision of needing to send him to China, to the Republic of China, and he served there very ceremoniously. So I want to thank him again, and please, Ambassador, share some of your wisdom with us, but also please share with us information on your book. You can do me a favor and talk a little bit about Black people in China and your experience there. I know they got we're talking about
That's a diplomat, my brother. Yeah. He's a diplomat. So I'm the activist. I will talk about aspect of that.
Okay. We're sitting here talking about an Afrocentric view of the world, but he was in China where the Chinese don't believe that we are anything. And if their culture believe they're the most cultured people on the planet. So without any further ado, His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Denis Antoine.
Perfect. Hey.
You got to unmute, Denis. Unmute.
Unmute. Yeah.
You got to unmute, Denis.
Unmute.
All right.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Denis. Thank you.
I think you guys, let me say to you, gentlemen, thank you for your reference to my activities. However, it is inspired by individuals like yourselves. When I met Stan and I met a gentle brother from Jamaica, and then I met my brother from Cameroon, I began to get excited. I got real excited because, when you meet enlightened intellectuals like yourselves, you can do less but learn. And I'm learning. I have been fortunate to be called on to go to a few places. I have seen the world. I've been to places where I've never imagined I would be. But what I want us to do now briefly is I want to invite each of you to think back. And think back about how it was before the pandemic. And now think beyond. Think beyond and recognize how much has changed in the last 6 months. And how fast it's changing. Look at your family, your community, your city, the nation, the world. And today it means thinking beyond. We have to think beyond. And by beyond, I mean, it is not about going back to our favorite pastime activity or favorite place in the community. It's not about that anymore, because even if we go back there, we go back with a certain apprehension. A lot is happening globally. And geopolitical masters, right now, they're hard at work. They are at work positioning themselves. Now, remember that the buzzwords before the pandemic was about human rights, economic justice, civil rights, peace, and displaced people. And we see that these segments of our societies stand the brunt of the pandemic, and as if it doesn't matter, because they were the extendables anyway. So my thinking as I look, we definitely cannot do it by relying on infotainment and consumption. All this information, and we entertained by it, and we just consuming everything that is we're consuming. We have to look at our production capacity. And therefore we have to look at Africa and the diaspora, the African diaspora. For example, Africa is expected to lead the world population growth by the end of the century. And remember, the UN projects Nigeria to gain more people than any country on earth by 2100. And the number is astonishing. While I was in China just a few months ago, myself and the ambassador of Jamaica, we struck up a real tight kind of collaboration. It's a coincidence that the ambassador of Jamaica in China is a full, what you would call, ancestral Chinese. He looks Chinese, he is Chinese in his ancestral past. But we were Caribbean men in Jamaica. It was so coincidence that before coming back here, I wrote a book. I wrote a book with him as the subject. Why is there everybody looking at me? And if you look on Amazon, you would see that, why is everybody looking at me? It was a coincidence that as a Black man in China, you become a sort of a trophy, a pawn. Everyone wants to take a picture with you. They come into you and they're rubbing your skin to see if it rubs off, to see, it's a kind of, I don't know how to call it, but it is very condescending to the extent that the understanding of African in China is totally flawed, but it is mimicking what's happening in America. That's the perception that they give of what an African person is. And so the book is on Amazon right now called Why is Everybody Looking at Me? And that occurred because myself and the ambassador of Jamaica, we decided to team up. And wherever I go, we would join each other. Nobody sees him because he's Chinese. And I am the one who's followed everywhere. But that's not all. That's not all. I became involved in the UN model UN, like my brother Guy. There is the Montessori model UN. That's another version of bringing the UN to youths. So we went to schools and universities talking and explaining who I am, what I am, where I am, giving a sense to many, many, many Chinese, the Chinese world, that their stereotypic understanding of an African is not just one that has dark skin and they are taught that they are not equal to them. They're taught that. We have to remember that. So that's why we also have to remember that as fast as the Africans, young Africans leave Africa, so the foreign diaspora goes into Africa and the Caribbean. There's 140 million of us out here, more than 140 million of us out here, including America, the Americas. We don't know each other. The Jamaican and the Caribbean people are Caribbean people, and American people are American people. That's why Stan I call him the connector. This African Caribbean Association in Philadelphia has done so much. And what we have to realize is this diaspora has to recognize that there are more youths. So the young people of Africa is in the majority, you know. When you look at the number of young people in Jamaica, in Africa, we have to connect them. So that's where I'm working now. I am working on that. I just published this, Get on Board, Children of the World. And I was shocked that this thing has gone viral. Literally, the United Nations invited me to a meeting to discuss this. You know, we have Amina Mohammed, who is the Deputy Secretary General, invited me for a meeting so we can discuss this book. And it is about the future. It is about youth getting engaged. And so what I'm going to close with is the African diaspora has a population of 140 million plus, and there is about 1.2 billion in Africa. We have to recognize that there is power. So what we need to do, as Guy is doing, is to help our youth in the diaspora find their power source, and let us light up this African diaspora so it could shine on Africa. We have to connect. And that is what I'm working on. I'm working on a few programs right now. We have something at Gregory University in Abia State where we're doing an academy to bring seminars and bring youth engagement. So we're doing that. I'm working in Grenada. I'm working with the organizations, One Shared World. We're looking at the Caribbean. Myself and some other Jamaican folks, we are working with young people, the Institute for Caribbean Studies and Ambassador, Ward. We are working to connect our young people, and that's what we're doing. I believe I've been working more than when I was working. So I would close with this right here.
Excellency, we are so proud of you.
It is wonderful, wonderful. I'm here reading some of the chats, and I want to thank all of them for connecting us and being a part of this. Before I go to the question and answers, I want to make sure that people understand that the world will exist even if we don't exist. Okay, it has been here for billions of years. It will be here. The question is, how do we impact with the world? Even if there are things that you are engaged with in your community, in your state, your country, or your world, how do you change those things? What are the necessary skills we need as Black people to be engaged in the world? If we want to argue that white people rule the world, then what do you need to do to change it? What are the skill sets we need? What are the intellectual capital do we need? How do we prepare generations for this inevitable change? The world will change whether we're there or not. So we want to take on a responsibility. I want to thank each of you for speaking to this, because we want to prepare our generations to come after us, just like we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors that were enslaved, that were sold on slavery blocks across the country, across the world. We stand on their shoulders. And because of their sacrifice, their dying, their pain and suffering, we're here now. And we can help make a contribution and leave our youth, our next generation, our millennials and our children, some of this wisdom you have earned. Some they may listen to us and just throw it in the trash. But the idea is we may not have all of the steps to the future, but we certainly want to see how we can help prevent you from making the same mistakes we did. You don't have to do that. We have enough intellect, expertise, and also academic experience. That's what people go to colleges and universities for. I'm giving you a shortcut. I'm being some of the most 3 experienced diplomats in the world right here in your living room. And you're listening to them talk about their experiences in diplomacy, the world, and what they're doing to deal with youth now. I'm also hoping that this will inspire many of us. Listen to you guys. I know it makes me want to do more. And also I hope it will give our audience some ideas of what they can do in their own community and as they prepare themselves, their children, and their grandchildren. This next election that we will have on November the 3rd will change the world. So we can't be messing around, piddling and paddling like it means nothing to us. The president of the United States called Africa and Haiti shithole countries, and excuse my language, but the president of the United States, the most powerful nation in the world, that's what he thinks about us. So we have work to do, and I want to thank you guys for stepping up and being part of this. And we have some questions here, but let me just ask Chris, before I go to the question, each of you want to make a little wrap up, because I know you're looking at the chat, and there's a couple questions there on Cameroon.
A lot of good questions.
There's some questions there on China and its dominance on Africa. And I also wanted to check with Chris, because we have all used his name, the great Marcus Garvey, but somebody tell me how a guy Marcus Garvey comes out of Jamaica with a world view that black people can control the world. Not today, 100 years ago. We just celebrated his birthday, 100 years. What is it in this black man that makes him think he can rule the world? And the most interesting about it, he damn near did it. He organized 6 million black people from around the world in 1921. He didn't have a fax machine. He didn't have a cell phone. He did it. So that tells you about some of our greatness. And Chris, just talk a little more about that, because it's not only him that came out of the Caribbean. The great Eric Williams came out of CLR. James came out of the Caribbean, and Stokely Carmichael. So what are y'all doing down there in Jamaica? What are you doing in them islands with these things? Oh, man.
Yeah.
So Chris, please give us a little update, okay?
Thanks, Stan. But I think Ambassador Ugo is
Oh,
here.
my soul.
I've been sitting here. I had some issues with my audio and video, so I don't know if, because I've been listening and I actually logged in by 5:55. I was there waiting for you guys to come in, so maybe that was the mistake. But I am here, so just letting you know, because I wasn't sure if you could tell me, I was
could you just let me take a moment and introduce you appropriately, and then we'll have you before, okay? No, it's serious. The Honorable Ugochukwu is
it's Ugochukwu, by the way.
yeah, right. He's formerly the deputy mayor of the city of Newark, New Jersey. He is the founder and president of the African Diasporan for Good Governance, Inc. here in the United States. As I said before, it's a national organization with chapters in 37 states and still growing. His vision of bringing us together, the diaspora together, to talk about making the changes in our world for people, for black people and people of African descent. So let me stop there and ask you, Honorable Ugo, please share with us. And you have a wonderful audience out there waiting to listen to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Stanley Straughter. And thank you, distinguished ambassadors. My good friend Guy, Djoken, good to see you. And Ambassador Antoine Denis. I mean, when you were talking about China, wow, that reminded me of my days in China. How everybody used to want to take pictures of me. I thought something was wrong. I didn't even want to tell anybody that they would touch your skin to see if there was something on your skin, if it was dirt or something. But, you know, so I remember those good old days, you know, but my proudest moment in China was in a place called Guangzhou, where I was the only black, you know, being given a tour by the president of the medical center. It's a medical center that holds or attends to about 20,000 patients every day. So I was the only black leading a delegation from the United States. And for all that eyes could see were white people, Chinese and all that stuff, no black, no except myself. And all of a sudden, I saw a young, you know, 2 young black men. And immediately I saw them actually, you know, waved, you know, called them just to make sure that they are truly black people that I saw. And they were from Ghana, and they were both medical doctors. And I was so proud.
Wow, yeah.
I told the president of the hospital if we could take pictures, and we did, and they published it, and you know, so that's that. So again, thank you very much for having me. As Honorable Stan introduced me, I'm the president and CEO of African Diaspora for Good Governance, ADGG. And one of the things, areas that I'm very passionate for ADGG is the area of youth. So ADGG has the League of ADDG Youth. So because we understand that if the discussion of African continental issues and African diaspora issues are to continue, we must indoctrinate, we must educate our youth, we must tell them those unique things that would make somebody like Guy Djoken, myself, Ambassador Denis Antoine, Chris Chaplin from the Caribbean, from the African continent to come to America against all odds. And we succeed in our various endeavors. So we have to get our youth, especially those that were born here, who for some reason, if they are not properly taught, will take it for granted. Why these African kids? Why those Nigerian kids in various universities were out, you know, smart everybody and come up with top grades? So ADGG is positioned to bring all people of African descent, whether you're African American, African Caribbean, African European, African Chinese, African Indian, ADGG brings all of us together under one platform so that we can begin to talk about issues, our survival, both in the continent of Africa and in the diaspora. So, and we're doing a good job, with that at the moment. So we have wonderful youth and their programs that they bring into ADGG. So for those young people that are listening today, if you want to get involved, go to addg.org, and so you can join us. By the way, Honorable Stanley Straughter is a board member of ADGG, along with the great Dr. Julius Garvey, who is the son of Marcus Garvey that has been mentioned here. He's a board member of the board of directors of ADGG. So, and ADGG is all inclusive. Honorable Stan talked about being in 37 states. We are now in 38 states. We just added Oklahoma. So we are growing and growing and growing. So I welcome everybody, to check out ADGG through our website, addg.org, and join us in what we're doing, because together, we show the world that Africans can do for ourselves. We don't need them. We don't need anybody to show us what we need to do for ourselves. But African diaspora can lead the way, So, and Honorable Denis Antoine, the ambassador, talked about doing some work in Gregory University. For those who don't know, Gregory University is in Abia State, Nigeria. I know that the university personally. I've been there several times because I'm from that part of the world. So, and ADGG is also connecting with, we are working with a lot of African diaspora organization. We're presently working with another a great organization, the African Diaspora Development Institute. So what we're doing, that particular organization is positioned to do work in Africa. So what it's doing is working with heads of states and presidents of African countries if they are looking for expertise. So that organization will help them first look into the African diaspora, tap into the expertise of the African diaspora first before they can look at the expatriates, white, whatever, but first get the African diaspora. So ADGG is doing that. ADGG believes that there's nothing, we cannot do for ourselves if only we get organized. There's no reason why ADGG or any other organization, African diaspora organization, cannot have maybe a mortgage institution that can give mortgage to African people, people of African descent. We cannot continue to complain that, oh, they denying us mortgage and they deny. No, we set up our own mortgage company. We can't continue to complain that our students are not getting student loan. Let's set up the loan scheme that will give our students loan. So that is what ADG is working towards. And that is why, we are very passionate about the youth. And because if we get the youth right, I know Ambassador Honorable Chris Chaplin talked about, we don't want an Obama situation to be an isolated situation. We want to raise more Obamas. We want some African diaspora kids to be governors, senators, and all. We can do that. And ADGG also has, the political aspect of ADGG, the ADGG PAC, which, educates, empowers, and elects candidates, sponsors candidates for political office. So we want you guys, do not be afraid, be bold. If you want to run for office, please get with us. We can help you raise funds. We can help you, get into politics. Thank you, and I wait for the question and answer. Thank you, Honorable Stan.
The people in there.
Thank you.
Wow. The people in there.
Stan, you are muted.
Yeah. He's always muting himself.
Is that Councilor Blackwell trying to get on?
I think so. I saw her picture in the background, but I saw.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep talking until she gets in, and then we'll break back. Thank you, Honorable Ugo. We want to appreciate your comments and your work and the legacy that you're bringing to all of us. Your vision of ADGG is certainly important, but you have to have more than a vision. You have to implement, and that's what the definite distinction that you're making here now. Jannie, are you here?
Say yes. Say yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Stan.
How you doing? Let me introduce you appropriately. With this particular forum is organized by the I Care Academy, and I want to thank them, Rashid, for getting us together. We have heard from our other distinguished diplomats and ambassadors, and I want the audience to know that we now are in the presence of greatness. Honorable Councilwoman Jannie Blackwell from the 3rd Councilmatic District of the City of Philadelphia. She is currently the chairperson of the Mayor's Commission on African Caribbean Immigrant Affairs in the city, and she is also the first vice president of the Philadelphia Democratic Party. And for many of us, she's a friend, a mother, a sister, and she's Jannie. So Jannie, please give us some greeting words. And we're actually talking about young people, and I know you've mentored enough of us to know something about children and our future. So please take a couple minutes, Jannie, and we'll welcome you again. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for this warm invitation. I'm sorry I got all mixed up and didn't get there, but as they say, I guess all's well that ends well. At least I hope so. And I'm very, very proud to be in this meeting. Nothing's more important than our young people and how we keep them engaged and how we make sure that they move forward from here. I mean, I met my late husband, former Congressman Lucian Blackwell, from teaching his children. And so teaching has always been a part of my life. I chaired the City Council Committee on Education, and I've always been involved in education all my life. So we are now, and I have a granddaughter who's now chair of a charter school, Jannie Blackwell at Prima Charter School. They have 2 locations, and we're just always involved. Nothing could be more important than us training our young people, letting them know how valuable they are, how important they are, and giving them an example of who they have to be, how they have to understand who they are, and what their responsibilities are. So many young people are lost, and so many adults, especially under this administration, are lost. And I believe that is why we have the crime increasing, killing increasing, because we lack leadership. We have no leadership. Let's have positive leadership to show our young people which way to go and to help them in education. I'm glad that we're being very, very careful in many places across this country about in terms of college and everything from K to 12, about what schools open, about keeping our kids well, about keeping our kids safe, and making sure that they are spaced out and making sure that they are as well as they can. But nothing could be more important than us making sure that our young people have their academics, but that we, as Black people around the world, teach them who they are, from whence they've come, why they are important, who their people are. We didn't all come from slaves. I mean, we existed a long, long time before that. And we have to let our young people know that they were first. They're the most beautiful, that they were first, important, that they started this nation. They started this nation when Europeans were in caves. We were there. We were kings and queens, and we were beautiful people. So I think that we have to spend our time trying to let young people know how much we value them, how important they are, and they have to look up to themselves and their parents and their relatives and their people, learn about their culture, and learn that it was taken away. We weren't born with none. It was taken from us so that they loved themselves. Once our young people learn to love themselves, they won't hurt themselves. They won't kill one another. They'll be here and love them as much as we do. And I'm just proud to be here. I look forward to working with all of you in every way I can. And let me say again, thank you. And I'll be happy to join in this discussion throughout. Thank you. And thank you, Stan. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Jannie. We appreciate having you. We love you, and thank you all. So, Chris, I want to, one of the last points the council lady was making about culture, and we were talking before the Honorable Hugo came on. We were talking about Marcus Garvey and Eric Williams, and one of our chats put in through, don't forget Shirley Chisholm. So we know there's some dynamic people. And so why don't we follow up with the question of culture? You can focus on the great Marcus Garvey and others, but let's take a few shots around culture, because many of us came to the table by virtue of having a very clear understanding of the cultural contribution historically that Black people and other people of color have made to the world. So you can start with Marcus Garvey, and then we'll go to Ambassador Guy, and go back to Jannie and Ambassador Antoine on the question of culture and the contributions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And you know, and certainly I can speak about Marcus Garvey's contribution in terms of culture, but you know, being a banker, you know, one of the things I've always read about him and heard about him, and that people don't talk enough about, is the business aspects of what he was trying to do. Because back in, I guess this was in the 20s, 30s, he raised close to $1 million to invest in a number of businesses. And you know, one of the stories that always struck me that I heard, I haven't heard many people talk about it, is that he owned a newspaper that reached a circulation of, I think it was 10,000. It was called the Negro World. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the few new Black-owned newspapers that refused to take ads for hair straightening or for skin whitening products. Now, you know, I'm sad to say that this skin whitening thing is, you know, has affected, you know, Jamaica. I mean, a lot of people doing it, but imagine he owned this newspaper and he refused to take those ads. And that's a kind of integrity, that's a kind of honesty, that's a kind of, you know, strong backbone that I believe I'm beginning to see more and more in the young people. Now I'm hoping that, you know, a lot of us aspire to 9-to-5 jobs. That's not something to necessarily aspire to. I'm hoping, I try to encourage my sons. I say, hey, and my younger son is taking it on, go start a business. I wasn't able to do it. My father wasn't able to do it, but I'll sacrifice and I'll fund your business. So I'm hoping, you know, the listeners, more and more people, that's why I do what I do, Stan. You know what I do. My previous job, I funded a lot of Black-owned, Black-managed funds. And so in terms of capital, we want to get capital to the young people, to our brothers and sisters, but we want you starting businesses. That's the way you get, part of the way you get, there's political power, but there's economic power. That's personally what I've committed my life to. And until the day I die, that's what I'm going to be doing.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to ask the brother Ambassador Guy, but Honorable Hugo, don't forget, you need to get his, sign him up as an ADGG member, okay?
You'll be amazed.
Ambassador Guy.
He's a member of ADGG.
All right.
Yes, he is. He is a member of ADGG.
Ambassador Guy, I know you are working with UNESCO, and I wanted you to follow up with, as Chris remarks, about the culture, but I want you also to talk about the decade of African descended people that will be ending in 2025. So we're going through 10 years commemorating at the United Nations the decade of African descended people. We've just gone through and celebrated 400 years of people from Africa being enslaved in what we call the United States. So just talk about the cultural aspects of this, and then I'll go to the Honorable Hugo for his impressions, okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Stan. It's always a pleasure. I remember the first time we met. Remember the first time we met was, you know, under the auspices of Ambassador Antoine at the United Nations. Remember?
Exactly.
Yes, so I remember. It's like 2000, almost more than 5 years ago. But so anytime I think about culture, I'm always amazed because I will share something that happened during the summer. I told you about the summer program we're having virtual, where we have 500 young people from around the world that join a program. I know many of the people on the chat, you know, people are sharing their information about participating in Model UN, and I think that's one of the best things that can happen, because even when you say the Model UN, there was one section about the Model AU. So some were actually also doing a simulation of the African Union. So we all put out under umbrella UN, but we are talking about, you know, experience from around the world. So I was last year, I went to Colombia at least six times, because I'm working a lot with Afro-Colombians. Actually, one of them came to do an internship for me here for 3 months, 4 months. in the United States, because I've been working a lot of Afro-Colombian people from Arco descent in Latin America. And something strange happened. I was walking, first of all, they had a festival, and I went to the festival. I'm telling you, when I closed my eyes, if you were telling me I was in Latin America, there was just no way. The music, the food, everything was there, reminded me of back home in Africa. Okay, so I was like, where am I? So you see how powerful culture is. It's been 400 years, even more, since, you know, someone from home got on that ship and got in this part of the world. Yet when I'm traveling from here, I go there and I feel at home. So culture is something that is so strong, so powerful that, you know, nobody can take that away from us. You know, they were able to kind of dehumanize our parents, all these things, but that culture stayed there. And the other something very strange happened during the summer program the other day. I was one of the sessions where I inviting students to share about some of the things they do, you know, some of the funny things they do. And this girl came in and said, you know what? In my culture, this is a white girl from Colombia saying that we are not allowed to sweep someone's feet. Because if you sweep the feet, then they will never get married. I said, what? Hold on. Tell me about it. I actually had to record it because I couldn't believe, because I had the same kind of story in some part of Africa. I heard the same story. So I'm using this to tell you how culture, when we can lose everything, but the culture is the one thing that we can hold all dear, and that we're going to bring us together. So when I'm thinking about the event, I met actually Dr. Honorable Ugo was talking about the son of Marcus Garvey. I actually met him in Georgetown, Guyana. I was invited as keynote speaker for a decade, for an event for the decade of African descent. We connected right there, you know. Actually, supposed to be doing some work also with Jamaica, and I hope after the COVID we'll be able to catch up and do that. So the reason I'm mentioning him is because we actually made a commitment. We're talking about not only Marcus Garvey, we're talking about folks like W.E. Du Bois. We are talking about Africa. If we didn't have Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, and many other, maybe the African independence, the way we know it, will never happen. They were the people at the forefront, you know, requesting that this continent be free, right? And then when they got their independence, then we have people who were colonized by France that were seeing things differently. But you remember Kwame Nkrumah? He was influenced by all these people we are talking about. And when Kwame Nkrumah went there, he wanted to have the United States of Africa. It wasn't an accident. It's because he was connected with all these great people we are talking about. So the fact that folks from Africa, being from Africa, we can go everywhere across the globe today and see our impact and see what some of the things that our parents did 400 or 500 years ago just shows that we need to use that element of culture to bring us together. When I go to Jamaica and taste the food, I can feel Africa in there, you know? So culture for me is the one thing that will bring all of us together. The other thing that you asked me to talk about, Brother Stan, is the event, the cultural, the decade for people of African descent. It is a platform that I think we are not using enough. Okay, so like I told you earlier today, I'm actually putting, as we speak right now, I'm putting a committee together under the U.S. Relation Unesco Club to have the whole African diaspora. I think I mentioned that with you for at some point, Brother Stan, to come here in the United States for at least 1 week next year. We're going to find the best time. Again, hope we're going to have one that maybe also one in Latin America. I know we're talking about Brazil and Colombia, we're talking about that, or maybe Jamaica, whatever. But the one I would like to host all of you next year in the United States, when we're going to start again drafting what I call the roadmap for the next century for Black people. You all know what happened in the United States, right? Things did not just happen by accident. At some point, say, we are not going to accept this anymore. Let's go in the city council. Let's go in the board of education. Let's do this. There was a blueprint that people took home, and then we know Obama's story happened many years after. So for me, the African decade will end at the end of 2024, and we need to have a roadmap for our people, for our young people, empowerment, social entrepreneurship. So I'm going to stop here in the end of the time, but I'm looking forward to working with every one of you. I remember meeting the Councilmember Blackwell the last time Brother Stan invited me to the city council in Philadelphia. I'm looking forward to coming back again sometime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ambassador. I also wanted to, we're talking about culture, we're talking about a roadmap, and that brings me right to Honorable Hugo, because that's what ADGG is, kind of a roadmap. So, Honorable, would you just take a moment to talk a little more about the subject of culture? But I know embodied in your DNA is the organization, and ADGG represents that as one organization that can do that. So please talk a little bit about both, and then I'll go to Ambassador Antoine, okay?
Thank you, Honorable Stan. Welcome, Madam Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again. Culture is one thing that is very important to me, and I exude culture. I live my culture unapologetically every blessed day. So, because when a people of a certain culture are deprived of the free expression of their culture, the whole world loses. I hope you understand what I mean by that. The world loses when people are not allowed to exhibit their culture, to show their culture. Because all of us, there's a reason why God put all of us from different parts of the world. And allowing us to exhibit our culture is our contribution to the world. People will learn that this and that. Because there are certain cultures, like in Africa, where their food is full of medicine. The food is medicinal. So if you don't allow them to eat such food and all that, you don't get that use of using their food to cure illnesses. You know, I remember when I first became a deputy mayor in the city of Newark, New Jersey. So, and I dressed up like this. I hope you can see. I like to dress up in my African outfit. You know, so I had the whole 9 yards on, and somebody that thought he knew so much said, "Oh, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you are not supposed to wear your African regalia to the office. That as an executive, you're supposed to wear a suit and tie, you know." And I listened, and until he was done. And I told him, thank you very much. That I think as a deputy mayor, I also understand what I should wear to work and what I shouldn't wear to work. That yes, I am supposed to wear a suit to work, but I wasn't told that it was going to be a European suit. You know, that what I have on is an African official corporate suit, you know, with the a pocket square and everything to match, you know. So, and he said, "Oh, I thought that was a costume." I said, "You thought wrong," you know. So I kept wearing it that whole week, and then people will comment, "Oh, I like this. Oh, you're so comfortable." People are sweating in their suit and tie and all that, but I'm very comfortable with mine, you know. It wasn't until my mayor, my boss then, Mayor Ras Baraka, noticed what I had on. I wanted some. And, you know, the tailor made some for him. And he wore it. Then on a certain day when he was doing the State of the City address, he wore the suit. And everybody was, you know, clapping and how good he looked. And guess what? This became sexy in the city of Newark. Now everybody wears it. So we have to introduce it. Don't be intimidated. Introduce your culture. I remember when African music, nobody would play it in radio stations here in America. But African musicians started playing this thing and started going, you know, beyond and above to promote their music. They got successful. Now you listen, you see American stations, you hear Nigerian, Ghanaian, Ivorian music being played. Now they're integrating Nollywood, like African movie with Hollywood. So if they hadn't done that, you will not, you know, those things will not be here. The world will not benefit. And then think about the economic aspect of it. You know, Honorable Chaplin talked about the economic aspect of it. Every time I wear this, or I get people to wear this, somebody in Africa is getting rich. You know, you are helping people get, you know, pay school bills and all that stuff. And, you know, so we have to do that. We have to encourage that, you know. So culture is one thing that is very important. I talked about our youth, you know, the League of ADDG Youth. We stress it. Do not let anybody intimidate you. You are great people, like Councilmember Blackwell talked about. You are queens and kings, you know. Don't let anybody take that away from you, you know. People are jealous of who you are. When they talk down on you, they want to bring you to their level. Don't let that happen. Hold your head high, you know, and represent who you are. So I remember also, I got to go back to China. I remember in China, I was leading a delegation in another province, you know, in Guangzhou. And all the while they were like, okay, he's American, because I was, American. And then we kept going until we got to a certain place. It was at the airport. So there were Nigerians playing music. They were waiting for their flight, but they are playing Nigerian music. They happened to be Igbo like myself. And they had their outfit as well, and I appeared and I happened to have the outfit, but these guys didn't think that I was African. So it was when I started greeting them in the Igbo language, they're like, whoa, this American also understands this. I told them, so I'm actually born and raised in Nigeria, but I moved to America. And also that's how, so don't let people intimidate you with your culture. Culture is a great thing. Culture is your identity, even down to your name, So I remember when somebody told me, oh, your kids got to have American names, that their names are hard to say and all that. I said, but my kids are not just Americans, they are Africans. And their names are their identity, So we want, when you call their name, you immediately know where they are from. You immediately know that there's information, there's a message that is sent. So I encourage every one of us to please hold your culture dear. ADGG holds it, very dear. And that is why next year, every year, we're going to be having a convention. And the convention, we're going to exhibit all kinds of culture, whether it's the Caribbean culture, the Black Chinese culture, the Black European culture, the African, continental culture and all that, so that people will begin to understand the commonness of all these cultures, how this relates to this, how the Jamaicans or how the Garifuna in Honduras are playing music, like the music sounds like the Yorubas in Nigeria and all that stuff. So we are doing that. We want to try to bring all this together. And ADGG, is one organization that is doing that at this very moment. And we employ and invite everybody to join us so that we can do it all together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hugo. Wonderful, wonderful contribution. I do want to say that part of this program is also sponsored by We Buy Black. As Hugo talked about economics, if we had the economics of just Black people coming together, we in the United States, it's estimated that our gross domestic product is over $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion, I think, something like that. It's huge. We will be the fifth largest country in the world if we aggregated our dollars, and we can support ourselves, as one of the people were talking about. But I wanted to make a quick transition to Ambassador Antoine, because several of our chats talk about the power of not only of economics, but the power of education. And I know Dr. Antoine is a scholar, an author, and dean at several universities. So we need to just transition to have a conversation about education, because that's how we learn to hate Black people. Somebody taught us that in school. I learned that George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and he didn't tell a lie. I learned nothing about Black people through 12 years of public education and been to 3 universities. If I didn't select the course myself, I still wouldn't have learned anything about Black people. So education is very fundamental in our cultural understanding of the world, of practices of the world, and as Brother Hugo pointed out, who we are as a people. So Ambassador Antoine, you want to take that for a minute, please, and talk about education and all of its various aspects?
Well, thank you again. And let me say hello to Councilwoman who has joined us.
My friend, it's so wonderful to see you.
It's a pleasure to see you. I think we have to begin to talk about our human intellectual achievement, that collective achievement which gives us our culture. Now, social institutions and achievements is also our culture. We have to teach that. We have to be very careful that when we talk about culture, we don't talk about garments and simple things and art. It is about intellectual achievement. And if our young people are made to understand that culture is identity, it's value, as was said earlier. Now, the whole concept of, currently we have a lot of edutainment. Edutainment has become part of education. And so if we're going to be entertaining while we educate, we have to make sure that we do not dilute the intent of getting our young people to gain knowledge. What we have to do, and I promote, is intergenerational engagement, so that we do not think about the future when we're thinking about the youth who are sitting with us. We have to ask our young people to look around them, look around you, and see all the wonders that past and current generation have delivered. They have delivered in whatever form it is now. You were not participating as a young youth now in this process. The question is, how will you contribute? And how would you add value to what you have been born into? So this intergenerational dialogue is about passing it on. The number of years in policy and governance that Councilwoman Blackwell has had, and Stan in policy and in collaboration, if we simply talk about the youths as being in the future when they are sitting beside us now, we are missing a very important part of the equation. What does the future look like? We have to help our youths visualize the future so they can realize the future. Now, visualizing the future means that they have to understand what needs to be different from what is now. And they are responsible for carrying the baton to that point. Remember, the generations, we do not have transfer zones. You know, in a relay, when you're running a relay race, you have transfer zones where one runner passes the baton. In generation and human generations, one generation don't lie down for the other to get up. That doesn't happen in history. So what we have to do is ensure that we are conversant. We are passing it on through intergenerational exchanges. So what I'm going to say to the future, which is the youth, that you are now. You are now. You're not in the future. Posterity is. The unborn is in the future because we don't know them, but we know you now. So the question is, the youth must take ownership of the future now, today. And they must be given the space at the table in the education process, because we must become learners of their vision of the future, so we can guide them from the pitfalls that we have met as we go along. So education is knowledge, and I am encouraging every young person today who wishes to go far is to feed their minds, feed your minds, educate yourselves, become hungry for knowledge.
This is Stan.
And that is where I see the youths must take ownership of the future. Young people are often told they are the future, but they must remember you are now, therefore the future is now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador Antoine. Before I ask Council Lady Blackwell, she's an educator as well as a politician in election, but I wanted to have all of you, thank you all again, because the idea with these questions that are coming over the chat, I think where people appreciating your contribution you're making and raising very, very relevant questions. And I want you to know that. And I want to make sure that we get a chance to at least speak to some of them, okay?
Yeah. Yes.
One of the things I want to Council Lady Blackwell. Jannie still here?
Yes, he's there.
She's still here. You can hear her? Jannie?
She's muted.
She's muted. She's here, but she's muted.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I wanted to say something about the youth. I'll come back to her when she's joining us. But you know, right here in Philadelphia, you can go to the University of Pennsylvania Museum and see the Great Sphinx and the ancient civilizations that go back to ancient Egypt when Black people ruled that part of the known world at that time, over 9,000 years ago. And it's an opportunity for you to see, as Ugo pointed out, not only were we proud people, there's wonderful institutions that were built thousands of years ago that they're still studying today. And it's right at the University of Pennsylvania Museum. So please go and check that out, look at that. In addition to that, I want you to, young people are important for us as we continue to see and to talk about it. Think about it. Whoever Alexander was the Great, he was dead before he was 35 years old. Jesus Christ was dead before he was 35. Martin Luther King was killed in his 30s, and the great Malcolm X was assassinated in his 30s. So if you, like me, 70 and still hang around here, you missed your calling. We have to do something to advance the knowledge transfer, the intellectual capacity, and our skill set so we can rule the world and make our mark in the world for our people. So we have work to do. It doesn't be in there, but it certainly begins there with a broader understanding of how we are as a people, how we're situated in the world, and how we are impacted by the world, or how we want to impact the world one way or the other. So we must do work together. I want to thank all of you because, Brother Hugo, you did give us the ADGG website. Ambassador Guy, you gave us your website. Chris,
Yes.
you have your website you want to give to us and put in the chat room so our people can follow up. They seem to be very interested in how to connect and wanting to connect with you then, okay?
Yeah.
The council lady's not here, but I wanted to just go back to a couple things as we begin to wrap up. And Chris, you want to make any final remarks on your subject matter? We talked about culture, we talked about the community, we talked about the Caribbean, and I want to see get everybody to make some final remarks as we begin to close down and give references so people can follow up to talk with us. Okay? So the Honorable Chris Chaplin.
Yes, thank you, Stan. And my late mother taught me manners and respect. So Councilman Blackwell, nice to see you. Good evening. Looking forward. No, my closing remarks are basically, what I said earlier. To a great extent, I think we're getting organized in terms of political power and influence. I'm not sure that we understand that we need to have economic power as well. You mentioned the growth of Africa. Africa is going to be one of the largest economies in a few years. The Caribbean, we're part of the African diaspora. And I just believe that one of the things we ought to be teaching the young people is business ownership, whether it's through the stock market or direct ownership of business. I think that is a gap that I see in my day-to-day life, that we understand the need for political power, the need for getting organized, the need to work together in unity. I'm not sure we understand yet the need for economic power, for wealth as a group. And I think that's one of the things I keep working, I keep talking about. And I noticed that we have We Buy Black as a sponsor. That's a good start. Let's support them.
Thank you, man. Thank you again, Chris. Guy, you want to take a few remarks?
Thank you so much. I know there are so many questions on there. Someone was wondering how we could move forward and have foreign troops in Africa. I think the assumption there is, well, we know what happened to Libya and so many other countries in Africa when we still have foreign armies in the continent. And I think it's very, very important that something that we need to address. We know that in the past, some of these foreign countries were choosing who the leaders will be in Africa, and that's something that needs to change, and we can make sure that we secure that. The other topic, we are talking about some of those people who, some of the foremost thinkers of the previous generation today, Marcus Garvey, W. Du Bois, Kwame Nkrumah. They all fought because they wanted to have a united Africa. Okay? United States, and there's a movement called the Pan-Africanism. I think that's a movement that needs to be revived. Today, we are in a position to create alliances, and what happened in the virtual arena is just as real as what's happening on the field. So we could use the technology that we have today and really work to make sure that the Pan-Africanism, we all know about Sekou Touré was one of the first to say no to France. You know what happened to him, and then things like. But today, we have to work with our young people to make sure that we plan the future we need to see. Okay, Pan-Africanism is one of the things that I think is very, very important, because no single African country is going to succeed alone. If we come together, then we have a chance of providing the basis for a lasting future. The next thing is also, the other thing that I want to do is a social entrepreneurship. In the previous century, we don't focus our first about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is great, but entrepreneurship without the social aspect, it's what has led us to some of the terrible thing we've seen in the last 100 years. So we need to emphasize on social entrepreneurship, making sure that we use the connection and the knowledge we have. So I have two events that are coming very soon. On the 12th of September, we are celebrating the African Heritage Month. The website I sent you will provide more information, but we are seeking input from everybody. The African Heritage Month on September 12th. On September 20th is the International Day of Peace, because the international is 21st. So we also have a number of activities that will be taken on, where the role of peace, the role of young people is going to be central. So please check those websites, and then Brother Stan has our contact information. We are willing to work with any one of you, because again, my last quote from a very successful businessman in the United States, he said, "None of us is as good as all of us." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much. Honorary Ugo, you want to help us get ready as we get ready to close out? And thank you.
Yes, Stan, thank you very much, and thank you, fellow panelists and all the participants for the opportunity. All I want to say is that there's so much wonderful resources amongst all of us, from the Africans, from the Caribbeans, from the African Americans, and from all the other people, all the parts of people from all the other parts of diaspora. So we need to find a way to harmonize, to bring all these resources together for the benefit of all. I see in the chat room somebody asking or saying that they are, they're logged in from Haiti, that what is happening in Haiti is something that's happening in Africa. So see, there's this problem. I believe if Africa gets, her place in place, or her position in the world in place, the problem with African America will be halfly solved. The problem with Haiti, because what is happening, in the world now is because Africa is not getting any respect. And because it's not getting any respect, we in the diaspora are not being treated well, because they're like, hey, he's from Africa. And that's why the president will call us Africa, people from the S-hole, Africa and Haiti. There's a reason for that. You can't call somebody from Europe that same name, because they know where they are from. They know they are organized there. They can, stuff like that. So we have to find a way to begin to use the resources, the positive ones. The African American youth have strength, resilience. We need to find a way to merge that with why these Africans who are African kids in various schools, like the Nigerian kids, for instance, why they outperform others. Merge it with the resilience so that they will learn from each other, and then we'll have a new Africa, as the name said. We'll have a new, strong and formidable new Africa that can withstand anything that is thrown at us. Thank you very much. And again, please do check out adgg.org if you want to get involved. That's what we are doing. What I'm preaching tonight is actually what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Major John. We'll go. Is Ambassador Antoine still here?
Yes, he's here. Yes.
Yeah.
Ambassador, unmute yourself.
Yes, and meet yourself.
Yeah, he's here,
Ambassador,
he's here.
please,
All right.
I'd like to bring a few closing remarks, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kafi so we can move on. So, Ambassador, please speak.
But Stan and colleagues, I believe that the future we want relies on wider collaboration among African youth in the diaspora with the African youth on the continent.
That's right.
I think attention should be given to the diaspora division of the AU, which provides for facilitating collaboratives. We cannot be little islands, and the diaspora here can talk about Africa. Africa should be no more a subject. It should be a part of our process. You know, Africa makes good talk, good dialogue, good political speeches. We talk about Africa and Haiti. But what we want, for example, we have to begin to do, as we were doing with the Bishop of Mamfi, we were doing what is called sustainable urban villages, teaching how to, and engaging in entrepreneurship, as Guy said. But more than that, we have to get our youths involved with the division of diaspora affairs in the AU, so they understand the number of ways that the diasporans can engage with the African Union. This is now even the CARICOM has put an observer in the AU because we recognize we cannot talk it, we have to walk it. And so that is my suggestion. Young people must be made more aware of the policies, the agenda, the 2063. There is a major program of what is called development that the African Union has. And I also believe that Africans in the diaspora should also embrace the Sustainable Development Goals.
Amen.
Because the Sustainable Development Goals is about global change. And it's about the future. We call the youth the future. It's about you. It's about the youths. So we want them to become cognizant of the role that they can play. They were part of the formation. We invited youths in to talk at the UN. So my closing comments is to look around and to see what you're in and what you want to change. I'm speaking to the young people because I believe that more and more we find that our young people cannot be observers and you don't just call them to witness. They should be heard. They should be given their chance to give their view. They have good paradigms, fresh eyes, fresh voices. So get involved. And there is also a division for global governance at the United Nations. So we talked a little bit about global governance. Now, if we are going to play with that, we have to begin to have young people understand that the UN is evolving and there is UN, what is called changes that are going on. So we want them to become involved with the reforms that are necessary to upgrade the United Nations role, because the United Nations is out there already. It is out there in peacekeeping. It's out there in the different commissions. It's out there in the international legal, it's, the UN is already processing global governance. And if our young people can recognize their role in how it shapes up, the future could be in good hands. I have a lot of confidence in the youth because they are your children. So with these luminaries here, I know the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. So again, I'm saying to those youths who are listening, I believe that as parents, we believe in our children and we have taught them to be more than us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. I want to turn this back over to Miss Nafi. She close by so that we can any housekeeping things. But as she comes on, I want to thank each of you for wonderful, wonderful discussion. And our council lady Blackwell just called me. She said she's sorry she messed up the button and cut herself off accidentally. But I told her, fine, we'll do this.
Technology is catching up.
Yeah. So Ambassador Guy, we want to thank you. Honorable Ugo, we want to thank you, and Honorable Chris Chaplin and Honorable Ambassador Denis Antoine. It's been a great, great discussion. Number one. I think number two, I'm hopeful that as we continue these type of dialogue with our community, especially our youth community, that the Honorable Ugo can grow this youth component of ADGG, because that's our future, getting them engaged, to understand what's going on, to mentor them, and to help them to understand and see the trends in the world. We are sitting at the time of the emergence of a new world order. And are we preparing our young people to participate in that order? And at what level? Can you imagine our ancestors came out of slavery and with nothing, they built educational institutions, and we can't keep a Black university open today. I mean, think about that. We got historically Black colleges dying today, and our people out of slavery helped create Black institutions, historic ones. So we have a lot. We as elders in our community have a lot to contribute to our younger brothers and sisters and to the millennials to help maintain, to rebuild, reestablish, and restore and build our institutions, both here, Africa, and the Caribbean. Because that is the gun, that's the loaded gun that we have, education, and we prove it every day. Wherever you go, you'll see people, Black people, people of African descent around the world, helping us to move the world, help shaping the world, and making advances for everybody else. So we have work to do here, and we want to thank our leadership, historical leadership, and our brothers and sisters of the future. So, so Rashid, is Kafi here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure to turn over to you to make sure we got all the I's and cross all the T's. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This was a very, very fruitful discussion. So young people, you already know, let's get it right. Let's get it in gear, get ready, get involved, start your businesses. So we're from We Buy Black. This is New Africa August. We're closing out for today. We weren't able to get to all of the questions, so hopefully you were able to get some of those questions answered during the discussion. And for tomorrow, we have Miss Adrina May, who is from Elevate You LLC. She's the owner, and her topic is Think About It, Identity and Lifestyle Management. This presentation dives into two important elements that helps us not only to gain an understanding of who we are and how we operate as individuals, but it also highlights the different pathways we take in navigating our lives, both personally and professionally. So, okay, same line, same channel, 6 o'clock tomorrow. Join us. Thank you again, guests. And hopefully we have an opportunity to have you guys back again so we can make tighter relationships. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Everyone have a good night.
Well done. Goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.